Hello, Mark Stern. Welcome to the Doing CX Right show.
It's great to be here, Stacy. Thank you for having me.
Yes, well, let's start with who are you? What do you do professionally?
Awesome. So I'm Mark Stern. My business is the Custom Box Agency. We're really in the business of optimizing customer experience. And we do that through really getting deep into the customer journey. And our vehicle of choice, what we're known for, is after we've optimized the customer journey, we work with a lot of people that have a big digital or local footprint. So we like to bring in the physical, the kinesthetic to the experience. And so what we're known for is building out these physical box experiences that are really designed to give your people the tools and resources that they need to be set up for success and get results faster.
And what's a fun fact about you personally or professionally?
Oh, a fun fact. I just completed my 17th Spartan race. Never thought I'd do a mud run obstacle course race. It was something that I fell into by accident. It was a goal that I set in 2015 to just do a 5K a month. And it led me on this crazy journey. But now I've gotten my trifecta 5 times, which means I've done in a year, what is it, a 3 to 5 miler, an 8 to 10 and a half marathon mud run. And now I'm going for my 6th one right now.
So that leads me to my next question based on the lessons of accomplishing such a huge milestone in your life. Based on what you know right now, if you could go back and talk to younger 20-year-old Mark, what would you say to him based on what you know now?
Well, I used to joke that I was the poster child of corporate America. My entire career was in corporate America up till 2018. I followed the trajectory of this is the pathway and there's no other pathway. And I didn't know anyone who didn't go the corporate American route. And so corporate America prides you on the fact that whatever recommendations you have to back it up with data. And if I can go talk to my younger self, I would say lean into your intuition a lot more. And I say that as an entrepreneur now, is that the data is really important, but also know that data can be skewed and data could be interpreted to tell the story that it needs to tell. But there's an element of trusting your intuition and your gut, especially now as an entrepreneur, that there's been times that logically, in my mind, it's this sounds like a good plan or this sounds like a good person to collaborate with, but you can feel it in your gut and your heart that something feels off. And I've always learned that you have to trust your intuition because it's never going to misguide you. And that's something that really was, I suspended at a younger age because everything in corporate was about what does the data say?
Great advice. And I believe we have to follow our gut, our instincts all the time. I mean, it knows it's listening to the whispers in work and life. And that's a great strategy. So let's get deep into the topic. This is the Doing Customer Experience CX show. Let me ask you, Mark, what does doing CX right mean to you?
Yeah. So for me, it's step one. When we start working with clients, I think about, do you have a clear idea of what the actual customer journey is as they navigate through your products and services? And I find that a lot of people really don't understand what it is that they're asking their customers, their clients, sometimes even employees to do. And when you hold up a mirror to say, this is what you're asking, it's incredible to see how they get so taken back. And so doing CX right is truly about setting up your client or customer up for success out of the gates. I want to know that if you're working with me, I've set you up with all the right tools and resources. And now it becomes a conversation of getting you inspired to take the action. So when I think about it, it's all those touch points and making sure that you're aware of it, because the more that you truly understand that customer journey, there's just so much magic that can happen. You can understand where people are getting stuck in the process. You can introduce new means to monetize your business. You can incentivize or behavior or gamify your business because you have clarity on that pathway. You can utilize this as sales collateral. And so doing it right is really making sure you're clear on what it is as a baseline. And through that, then you can start to optimize those processes because you have clarity on exactly how your customers are navigating through your own products and services.
Now, the boxes that you provide, that sounds like it's significant in onboarding customers I would imagine employees too. Tell me about where is your sweet spot across the journey, if not all?
Yeah, I mean, there's two key sweet spots. The first one is the back anchor. Anytime we work with a client, if we're looking at building out an experience, you have to start with the end in mind. And the reason for that is if I know what the end is, I live in Austin, Texas. If I was going to come to visit you in New Jersey, I need to know that I'm going to have to travel from Austin to New Jersey to plan the journey to get there. So with clients, the first thing we like to do is like, what is ultimately the outcome that you're deriving for with your products and services? And I take it a step further and ask the question, what does success look like? And let's make it a binary that if you hit this milestone, you know without a shadow of a doubt what success looks like. So if I'm running a marathon, when I cross the finish line, I know without a shadow of a doubt that once I cross that finish line, I've completed the marathon. It's yes or no. Have you crossed the finish line? Yes or no. And so there's so many things like that that if you see, I can give you example after example, but having a black and white tangible outcome that really defines success is really powerful. The other key sweet spot is what you just mentioned, onboarding. Go back to the beginning. What is the onboarding process? One of the biggest traps that a lot of businesses get into is if you overwhelm your customers or even your employees from the get-go, people who feel overwhelmed, what you don't want to do is make this feeling that they feel like they're set up to become a failure. And even like if it's like it may not be your intention for that, but if people feel like they will not be successful, they'd rather disappear or request a refund on the up forefront. So this is why, like when you think about going to university, you go through an orientation week to navigate, like to teach you how to navigate the journey that you're about to go on. If you play video games or a board game, you read the rules to understand how to do the thing you're about to embark on. Otherwise, the word I like to use is if you don't have a strong construct at the forefront, you risk the possibility that chaos may pursue. And chaos is simply just people not knowing how to navigate through your products and services. So those are the kind of the sweet spots that we start to look at is the back end anchor and then the front end. Because if I have those two anchors, it's so easy to start to define the process to go from one end to the next.
So, who's doing it right? Any brands that you see that stand out to you?
Oh my gosh, for brands, I think there's a lot of people that are doing it right. But this is kind of where like I like to use any time that you can set me up for success and share me the journey. Examples that I get really inspired by. I mean, what was really cool about Spartan and why it's inspired me. And again, Spartan does obstacle course mud runs, which I never in a million years thought I would ever do. But what was so cool was in 2015, I just had a simple goal to do a 5K a month. And after doing it for 4 months, I got bored and was like, here's the Spartan race I saw on Groupon. And it was a 5K race. And I was like, I bought it. And then after I bought it, as we were getting closer to the race, I was like, what did I just sign up for? But what was incredible was like, I just kept on saying, just go. If you don't do it, you're going to miss your goal for the month of May. Did the race. And what they did so brilliantly was they gave me a medal when I crossed the finish line. So this is the marker that without a shadow of a doubt, I completed the journey. But what they did that was unexpected was, and I actually have it right here, you can kind of see, they gave me a third of a medal. And what it is imagine just having a medal and then a third of a medal hanging off of it. And what they did that was so powerful was Spartan came back and said, congrats on finishing the first race. Now it's time for you to go for your trifecta, which means you had to complete an 8 to 10 miler and a half marathon. I didn't start the year saying I'm going to do a half marathon mud run. All I wanted to do was the 5Ks. But when I got that third of a wedge, they created this open loop for me that made me go, okay, I need to collect the other two pieces. And the other thing they said is you had to do it in the same calendar year. So they put a timing element on it. And as a result, I did it. I did the 8 to 10 miler. I had two of the three wedges. And then I told myself I have to drag my body across the finish line. I am getting that last wedge to complete my trifecta. But for me, it was about the journey and the transformation I went through. For them as a company, it's about lifetime value. They introduced the means and the constraints that extended my lifetime value with them. Really powerful. And then as my fun fact, like the fact that now I've done 17 of them, never thought that would be a part of my identity. But this is also the power of Spartan holding a bigger vision for me and what I'm able to achieve than I held for myself. And that's something that I think is important as an entrepreneur.
So you followed your intuition. Groupon works. I think that's the funniest part of your story is that you saw the Groupon and then decided to go for it. That's great.
I can't believe it either. So, and it's funny because I'm like, is Groupon still a thing? I think it's still around. But like in the 2000 teens, oh yeah, Groupon was like everything and ads were everywhere, but it totally worked on me.
Okay, now let's get serious. Lifetime value. What did the race, what did your mindset, what did they do that keeps you sustaining and going for more and loyalty that other companies can learn from this experience?
Yeah, and the essence of it truly is Spartan held a bigger vision for me than I held for myself. And that was a big factor that really inspired me. When I grew up, I'm from Montgomery, Alabama. So I grew up in Alabama, first 19 years of my life. When I was born, my feet toed in pretty badly. And so I wore braces on my legs to help correct that. So as a kid, I always tried to play sports, but I was just not able to play sports because I would trip over my feet and just accepted at a really young age that I wasn't an athlete, that I wasn't meant to play sports. And what was really powerful was it happened when I turned 30 that I set this goal to do a 5K a month for 12 months. I did it because it just seemed like this stretch goal that wasn't possible for me. And so what was really cool was after doing it 4 months, I proved to myself January, February, March, April that I could do this. But when it hit May and I signed up for the Spartan race, like I truly did not see that as my identity. I'm not an athlete. And as I was looking at pictures of these Spartans, it wasn't me. And the cool thing about it is when I did it and completed it and got my first medal, I wanted more. But what I didn't expect is by the time I got my trifecta later on that year, 6 months later, having done a half marathon, it was an emotional experience for me because it was the first time that I realized, you know what? I am an athlete. I do belong here. I do fit with these people. So the thing that Spartan did pretty powerfully is they held that bigger vision for me. And as a result, it helped me change my own identity and how I saw myself. And so through that and unlocking that in me, that was an easy way for them to lock me in for life. I mean, they gave me something that, I could be more grateful for. They helped me realize a part of my own identity that I myself hadn't seen at that time.
So, brand leaders listening to this, what's that takeaway for them? Is it focus on emotional connections? Is it take care of your customers and potential customers the way you're describing? Like, what's that big, yeah, we could do that and differentiate our brand? What stands out?
I mean, I think the recognition piece was really powerful of what they did. And so the fact that they gave me a medal and then a third of a medal, I mean, the thing that's powerful about things that recognize people is think about this concept. So one of the things I love to talk about is the things that we save. There are things that we naturally save. Like I know when you read a book, you don't throw it out, you put it on a bookshelf. I know that when you get an award, typically like think of like getting recognized with your college or high school diploma. It's a piece of paper, but for whatever reason, we keep this piece of paper for the rest of our lives. These medals are simple accolades of recognition. I'm sure it costs Spartan just because we've had similar things produced, probably somewhere between $1 to $3 for each medal. It doesn't cost a lot of money, but the reality is you save it for life, which means these medals are taking up real estate in my house. So when I think about major brands, it's part of it is it all depends on which industry that you're in. But the power of recognition or this concept of the things we save. I want to take up real estate in your home. I want to provide value to you. I want to evoke a memory at a point in time because then these become these items that you never let go of for life. And again, your college diploma is a piece of paper. It probably costs about $3 to produce, but we save it for life. And so it's just really getting the mindset of how do we start to engineer opportunities that reflect the things that we naturally save. Things with replayability, we naturally save. A board game, you don't play Monopoly and then trash the Monopoly board. You don't listen to DVDs, CDs, and then throw them out. Typically, these things with replayability are things we save. Things we collect are things we save. These are all things that could be engineered.
What's really interesting to me is most people think about rewards and recognition in terms of their workforce, but you're talking about the customer. That doesn't happen very often.
It is, and it's such a cool opportunity too, because I mean, even like one of my other favorite examples I love is think about karate and taekwondo and the belts. It's such a powerful means because if you are a white belt and you know you ultimately want to be a black belt, you have to collect all the belts, and we call them jewels. So that's the word we use internally, is what's the jewel in this occasion, to get to that black belt, which means every time you get a new belt, it represents a couple things. It represents mastery or proficiency at a certain level of taekwondo, but you also have to recognize that taekwondo is a business. And every single belt on your pursuit from a white belt to a black belt, it's lifetime value, because in order to collect all the belts, you have to keep playing the game. If it takes you years to get there, all the taekwondo or martial arts studios are collecting money from you every step of the way in the pursuit of that goal. And so that's kind of where these models get really interesting with the customer in mind, is that there's so many ways. You think about Cub Scouts, it's the same thing on your pathway to an Eagle Scout. It's no different. When you think of loyalty programs for major brands, there's different things that unlock based on the way that you go through it. But these are all things that are really, really powerful. It means to give me something to strive for.
Would you say the ratings that we get in Lyft and Uber, is that similar? Like, I look at my rating
Me too.
and right, so there's not a lot of companies that are scoring us. Usually it's us scoring them. What do you think about that? And is that scalable to other brands? Should it be?
It's such a fascinating concept because I look at it all the time and then I get angry too. And I'm like, why am I this? Like, who dinged me? Because I don't look at it enough. And for the longest time, Austin, Texas we had no Uber or Lyft. They boycotted our state for a little bit, and they finally came back. When I lived in Austin originally, they didn't have Uber or Lyft, and everyone else did. But I think it's fascinating because, again, having ratings like that, it's another data point that you may not have exposure to, but it also makes me think about how am I showing up and respecting the driver, because the driver, is a person too. And so I think that that's a powerful way to, in some ways, control behavior or inspire good interactions. And then again, I think the other point of that is protecting the driver too, because if someone has a really low rating, if I were a driver, I would not want to pick them up personally. But that's what's interesting about that system. I think it's fascinating.
I do too. Oh my gosh, yes. How do you measure success in your perspective from all the different people you've worked for and with? What stands out to you in how do you know you're doing it right?
Yeah, my favorite thing to do is I love a good feedback loop. And so part of what I mean, so a feedback loop is at a certain point in the process, you may have something that triggers requesting some degree of feedback. It could be as simple as filling out a form. It could be simple, there's so many different ways to do it, checking in with your mentor, your boss, or your client. But having those moments that you're collecting insights and information or asking them to provide or submit something at critical points in time. What I don't want to do is, especially in the online space, I hate running into a customer or a client who bought my product and was like, oh my gosh, I listened to you on a podcast or I implemented your feedback from this course or product or coaching program. And we generated an extra 6 figures in our business. I don't want to find out about that because I ran into you somewhere at a conference. How do I engineer that says, I want to celebrate you. I want to tell your story. I want to learn your story and get them actively sharing that information. That's a powerful way to say, I can find out at critical points in time what is and isn't working by collecting those insights and feedback. But there's all different ways to do it because, again, if I have clarity on the journey, then I can also say, hey, when you hit this milestone and raise your hand, I may also send you something else as an incentive or a thank you in exchange for that feedback. So, we have done situations in which imagine something similar to, so a perfect example. Do you remember when the United States released a new quarter for every state?
Ooh, I do
So
not.
the US decided to release a quarter for every state. So Alabama, New Jersey, Tennessee all had their own 25-cent quarters that were out in circulation. My father and I got a coin board. So imagine a board with lots of slots to take those quarters as you collected them and you stick them into the state. We've taken something similar to that to say you may receive a different coin and we can get coins made at certain milestones in exchange for feedback. And they may get a board that has a certain number of slots with the incentive of wanting to complete the board. Things like that are easy to produce in a way to incentivize that we're asking people to raise their hand to get the next piece. And in exchange for raising their hand, we may be trading the feedback. So that's one way to do it. The other is looking at the data and the metrics. Whenever we see a campaign, we can see numbers and insights on sales on the front end or conversions on the back end. So if someone has a product or service that has an upsell on the back end, it's easier to see the numbers and the results, especially if you know. And this is why, like, any type of tracking, step one is, do you know your numbers? It's shocking how many business owners do not even know their numbers. But it's hard to prove progress and impact if you're not tracking all this information. And these are like basic things to track in a business. Yeah. But that's for us, like we see, like what's really cool is we see people get results faster and we see lots of conversion rates change on the front end because people get so excited about the physical element coming with it. It just feels like a new opportunity. You know, we work with a lot of businesses that have a strong digital footprint, but no physical footprint. And the data speaks for itself and just the power of giving people the tools they need.
So I want to emphasize two things. One is it's great to get feedback, but if companies don't do anything with it, don't ask. Don't waste people's time.
Yep.
So that and your word before about the feedback loop is a loop. It's closing the loop. It's not just feedback with a dead end. So I want to make sure people understand that. And secondly, the feedback, besides using it, I think it's important that people understand, as you said in the beginning, data is important. Let's also not forget the intuition. When you're talking to people, you're listening, the body language, it's the soft skills that also are part of the equation.
100%. It was like I had to relearn that when I left corporate and delved into being an entrepreneur. And thank goodness I tapped into that part. You know, that's like the entrepreneurship versus corporate. I always say is like checkers versus chess. The game board looks the same. The rules are completely different. So if you play checkers with chess rules, you will fail. If you play chess with checkers rules, you will fail. And so part of the game has been learning to play the game of entrepreneurship. And it's not foregoing my corporate skills and all the years I spent in corporate. It is about that becomes your competitive edge. So when you learn how to play a new game, layer on the strategy and experience that you have to make it your greatest competitive edge that you have. But just like playing a new board game, you have to learn the rules. And I struggled with that at the beginning because I'm like, I crushed it in corporate. I know I'm good at corporate. I'm very, very good in corporate. But I'm like, why is that not translating out of the gates? And it was simply because I wasn't learning how to play the new game that was in front of me. That was it.
I have to add on, because I'm a year out of corporate life. That was all I knew. And ironically, you talk a lot and you have in back of you all these beautiful boxes, branded boxes. And I always speak about corporate because I've been in a box, an org chart box for over 25 years. And that's all I knew. So life is very weird in corporate or out of corporate with a blue sky where there's no boundaries. It's not comfortable, and yet it's exhilarating simultaneously, a paradox.
What's crazy is, and that's such a good point, Stacy, because like when I left and became an entrepreneur, I had to realize that the biggest person. So you're right. In corporate, you're hired into a bracket. Like this is your bracket that you're hired into. You never realize what your potential. And that was a big aha for me. Was I was good in the bracket that I was in, but when you are as an entrepreneur, there is no bracket. So you realize the person that's holding you back the most is not an organization or the red tape that's in place. It's you. And that was a hard thing that like, I'm like, why am I telling me no? Because the reality is once I started playing this game, I realized like I am capable of so much more than I ever thought was possible. But it took me leaving corporate America to realize that. And that's true for all of us.
Yes. And those that are in corporate, I have to say that I believe both of us learned so much about ourselves and what doing CX right looks like and what it doesn't look like that you can change as a leader wherever you are.
So true.
So, as we're getting to the end, some rapid fire questions, which is what is the one key takeaway you want people to remember?
For this, so I would just say it is the importance, like, really, I cannot stress this enough. The more that you understand how your customers navigate through your products or services, and whether this is an acquisition journey, a delivery journey, or a retention journey, the more like it would truly empower you as a business owner. And I say that just because the second you have that, the amount of things that you can do, incentivize behavior, gamify your business, utilize that story and sales collateral, see where people are getting stuck in your business to help optimize that part of the process, ways to optimize or introduce new ways to serve them. It all hinges on understanding that customer journey. And through that, you can truly start to optimize the experience too.
Mm. I love that you talked about gamification because that keeps us engaged and motivated as well as the workforce. I want to say one caveat for listeners, and that is do not gamify customer satisfaction results and your NPS results. Don't gamify that. Don't lure people to give you an answer that's not authentic. So, one thing I've seen in my time, and it makes me crazy when they do that.
Love it. That's good. I'd second that. So,
And leadership advice. What's the best leadership advice you've given or received?
so the thing that changed everything for me is when I switched over, when I was at Deloitte, working in corporate America. Deloitte celebrates you for being the world's best generalist, being good at everything. And that's just what you had to learn to be. As you had to learn to figure it all out and do it all. As an entrepreneur, you're not celebrated for being the world's best generalist. Actually, it's looked down upon in this game. And so when I started, I had this business in virtual events and this business in these custom box experiences that we're building. And my mentor came to me and said, I started asking people who's Mark Stern, and half of them say, like 50% say you're the box guy. The other 50% say you were the virtual event guy. So you're not 100% anything. Like, you're confusing people. And the reason I think this is really important advice is the law of reciprocity states, and I'm a believer that, like, I truly want other people to win. I want my entrepreneurial friends to win. I just want other people to win. Law of reciprocity states, therefore, other people want me to win. And what's the easiest way to help other people help me win? It's not overcomplicating the messaging around what you do. And so when people ask about who does boxes or who does these experiences, because I'm 100% of that, and that doesn't mean you can't do other things. You're just leading with being known for one thing in particular. All of a sudden, all these people online will get loud about me and tag me on things. And it's incredible because I made it easy for them to help me win. And I do the same vice versa. And so that's the biggest thing, is really the power of niching down as an entrepreneur. It's incredible because it is not celebrated being good at everything. They want you to be known for one thing in particular. And from that, you can start to do, like, support people in several different ways, but be known for one thing.
Fabulous advice. And I am so glad that we had this conversation.
Yeah.
I will share in the notes where to find you, your company, and all the things that you're working on. And it's fabulous that you are made a career in products related to improving experiences, because that's what life's about. So thank you.
Thank you, Stacy.